Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
I am your host, Scott Henderson, and my co-host is Dr. J. We've got a guest on here that we both have learned from and talked to quite a bit. Jason, who do we have coming on?
Scott, today I'm excited to welcome Aaron Young. And, often I don't know why, but generally he will use his middle name, which is Aaron Scott Young. So it's easy for you to remember, Scott. This, like you said, is an individual that we've come to trust and look up to, has a lot of experience. In fact, he has over 4 decades of experience in helping entrepreneurs not only start their business, but grow those businesses and then come to a point where in his vernacular is unshackled. In fact, he has a course that's called the Unshackled Owner. And most recently, he has published a book called Unshackled, The 7 Levels of Business Excellence. Aaron, we're super excited to have you on the podcast. Thank you for being a guest.
Guys, I'm so honored to be here, and thanks for having me. And thanks for talking about the book. Wherever we go today, I just wanted to let you guys know on the book, which just came out, and which is having more. It's got more legs than I expected it to. Is really sort of like me boiling down those since 1983. So depending on when you're listening to this, folks, just do the math. But since 83, so 40 some years, of trying to figure out how to make this thing called entrepreneurship work, and finally settled into a rhythm with it. And so it's not the pathway to become, independent and have time and money freedom, but it is the way I've figured out. And so anyway, thanks for saying the book. I didn't know we were going to go to the book this time. So thanks for mentioning.
You recently had a book signing at Barnes and Nobles in LA somewhere recently, right? And like blew all the other authors away in the number of book sales and attention that you got. I mean, congratulations. Let's celebrate when celebration is necessary.
I will take a celebration, and we will be they've offered me a tour in the spring. So I'll be going across the country, doing little meetups and signing books, which is something I never imagined doing. I didn't ask. I was honored that they asked me. And so, yeah, let's see how it goes. They did tell me, you might have 50 people show up and you might have 2 people show up. So if you're willing to take a risk, so who knows? It's all, we just, we do the best we can with everything. And so anyway, but let's talk about what you guys want to talk about.
Well, the whole idea of being unshackled as an owner really fits in with our podcast as we talk about that mastering your millions is all about accumulating, enjoying, and passing on wealth. And as an entrepreneur, we get caught in this almost a rat race where we're so tied to our business that hardly anything else happens. But you're teaching people, those entrepreneurs, to do things in a way. I've got an engine going by.
I can't hear it.
The fire stations is right across there. Okay, you teach people to really enjoy their wealth and get away from the grind of that, and it's not simply a story for you. It's something that you have lived yourself. Tell us a little bit about what would you say that the 3 or 4 takeaway lessons from life that has helped you to be in a position to teach this to others.
Oh, wow, that's good. Nobody's ever asked me that question. Thank you. The first lesson from life was watching my dad. Now, my dad, and you and I've talked, so you've probably heard me express this, but your audience is not. I lucked out with my dad. I lucked out with my parents, but my dad was just this character that inspired me on so many levels. I wanted desperately to be like my dad, except in one way, which was financially, because I watched him struggle and really keep a job that I knew, and he often said he hated the industry he was in. He was a salesman for the trucking industry, so he was calling on companies and trying to get them to put freight onto trucks. And he did that. He was doing movies and TV back in the around 1960, and it was just doing bit parts, but he was expressing as an artist. He was having a great time. Then he meets this super cute girl, and they decide to get married. I'm glad, because it's my mom, right? And but he thought, I need to not do this artistic stuff. I need to take care of a family. So he gave up on his dreams, and he took a job at 21 or 20, 22 or something, and worked the rest of his career until he retired. And he retired at like 67. He worked this thing he hated to make sure he could take care of his wife and 5 kids. And thanks, Dad, because he did it. But it was always absolutely clear that he was behind the 8 ball all the time. And I don't know how many people listening know that feeling of I just keep showing up because I need insurance. I need this predictable thing. They're putting money into a 401k, or if I quit this job, it'll be hard to get hired another job because it's easier to get hired if you're already working somewhere. We've got all these chains and restrictions we put on ourselves because we're afraid. And my dad was afraid. And so he took this job and he did it his whole life. And I always knew he was miserable, and he always made just enough to pay or barely, not even really, because he had to work 2 jobs most of the time, but he made enough money to barely get by. Thankfully, he had a company car, because most of the time I was growing up, our only vehicle at our house was a company provided car. We didn't have our own family car. Consequently, when I was getting to the place where I wanted a car, I went and sold tickets to an event we were having at my high school, and sold thousands of tickets. And the prize was this old VW Dasher station wagon that the auto shop had fixed up. And I got this stupid old car that had a loud muffler, no radio, all this stuff. But I had to figure out, my parents can't help me. I've got to figure this out for myself. And so first big life lesson was, don't sell yourself out for not even golden, kind of like brass handcuffs, or steel handcuffs that are just gonna rust and scratch you up. My dad lived the quintessential, as Thoreau said, the life of quiet desperation. And I learned that can never be. Second thing I learned along the way was, too many people try to force feed what they're doing to the marketplace instead of figuring out what the marketplace actually wants to buy. And I learned that the more we figure out a way to come to where the customer is, the easier it is to have success. And the more we try to say, no, believe me, my thing is great, you should spend money on it, the harder our life will be. And we'll just beat our head against the wall. Maybe we'll be one of those unicorns, and we'll be lucky. We'll right place, right time. Most people, the reason the last census showed us that the median income for somebody who claims themselves as a business owner or entrepreneur, the median income of the 22 million people who claimed self-employment, median income is $2,000 a month, $24,000 a year. They're beating their head against the wall. And the third thing is, and one of the deep tenets of the book and of the training course and of my belief system is, most of the entrepreneurs, remember, I've got like 48,000 business owner clients right now, right? And so I talk to people. Most of them are very busy doing their thing, right? They show up every day and they landscape another house, or they serve another breakfast, or they fill another cavity, or they whatever. The I'm hearing my voice coming back all of a sudden. I
Yeah,
don't know what's
Jason, you're
changed.
echoing.
That wasn't happening before. That's not happening now.
There
Okay.
we go. It was Jason.
All right. So what I see people doing is showing up and doing their work every day. And then to get more wealth, they just try to get another customer or raise their price a little bit or work an extra day. And that's fine. That's a way to be self-employed. It's the hamster wheel, right? It's the hamster wheel. And if they would just decide simply not, I need to sell more widgets or do more services today, if they would instead go, oh, I have an outcome that I specifically want to achieve. I need to have this many customers at this price, or I need to have discretionary cash, like my cash after taxes, of X, at which point I can make a significant change, hire professional management, sell the company, have a cash cow that feeds me every day, whatever. If we get explicit about what we want out of life and out of this project, and then don't just try to do our work every day, but we are taking steps towards the specific outcome, which may mean continuing to do this work. It may mean doing our work slightly differently. It may mean doing our work completely differently. So if you put a pin in that, think of Berkshire Hathaway, which now is thought of as an investment company, but was a mill, was a making fabric, right? Was it fabric or was it paper? Berkshire Hathaway, I think it was fabric. Anyway, the point is, Buffett had that, and then he, yep, I have grandkids here for anybody that notices kids coming through the back. Anyway, that business utterly shifted from what it was. And if you know what your goal is and you're moving along and you go, oh, there's a better way or a different way that I can hit my objective instead of just staying busy in my business. In other words, get off the hamster wheel, which I always say gives you great cardio. You're making money, but you're not going anywhere. Those 3 life lessons have really, really taught me. Don't give up your dreams, and you got to make sure that you're selling something the market wants. And you've got to make sure you're working towards an objective, not just working to work. Those things will make your life, at least my experience has been, make your life much more valuable, much more fun, and you'll find out you can get ahead much more quickly if you do those things.
All right.
Long answer.
No, that was fantastic. I want to take this a step further. Let's say someone's been down this line a little bit. They've taken your direction. They have a specific spot they want to go. One of the things we hear a lot is, when do you hire and how do you attempt to, some people call it crossing the Rubicon, but how do you expand to have other people on your team?
I believe, and I teach this all the time, I believe that almost all entrepreneurs, even if they've got a great thing going, they hamstring themselves by eating all the profits, right? They upgrade their life before they upgrade the business. So if the business is working, I'm one of these guys, I love the story about, I think it was Mark Cuban, who would sometimes go into a McDonald's to get a cheeseburger off the dollar menu. And maybe it was even cheaper than $1 back then. And if he didn't have enough money, he would just go grab a handful of the ketchup packets and eat those, right? But he was hiring people with the cash flow or even profits of the company. He was hiring people. And I'm a complete believer in I should be the first one to take a pay cut if the company needs it. And I should be the last one to get a raise. All right. Now, my raise might be dramatically bigger than everybody else's if there's justifiable reasons to do it. But, in the '08 crash, the '08 crash caught up to our company in 2010 because we have all these business owners and they were kind of trying to survive and then finally just going, we can't afford this stuff or we're closing. And all of a sudden the spigot just got turned down like by, I don't know, 3/4 or more. And my partner and I had to face a hard question. Do we continue paying ourselves what we're paying ourselves and drastically cut the team? Or do we drastically cut ourselves and leave the team alone, leave them in place, because we will come out of this thing? So do we want to preserve our big fancy homes, our beautiful, luxury cars, our travel? Do we want to, do that? We did. We wanted to do that. Or do we suck it up, cut our pay, and keep the team in place? We chose the latter. And we didn't fire anybody. We let a ton, millions of dollars of client contracts, we let go of them. We didn't sue them. We didn't fight. We said, hey, it's tough for everybody. If you can't make it, I hope that when you get back on your feet, you will think of us and come back to us. And you know what? They did. We grew coming out of that recession quite a lot. But Lee and I both had to short sell our homes, move into rental homes, and our team never had that rubbed in their face. We took the hit. Now, when we started to boom again, we went back to our old pay. Then we went up and we bumped it up by another 50%. Right? So because the team does the work. So how do you know? I think you hire smart people, the smartest people you can, as fast as you can. And you're the last one. You're the first one to preserve the company because it becomes a stewardship. It's like a child that you're gonna make sure the kid gets fed before you're gonna feed your child before you get a big full dinner, a big platter of meat and cheese and mashed potatoes. You feed your family first, and that means if you're eating ketchup packets, that's what you do for a minute because it's your stewardship. And when things are great, then you get to go on vacations and you get to buy nicer cars and you get to move into a bigger house and you get to make investments. But you do that out of your surplus. And hiring, Scott, I believe, as quickly as you can afford to hire somebody that that does something great that you suck at, you hire that person. Because yeah, you might still be driving the old beat up VW Dasher for a little bit longer, but the company's going to grow much more quickly. Because usually most of us entrepreneurs think we can figure it all out. And most of us are crappy at almost everything. We're not good at almost anything. We think we're so brilliant, but we're usually not. We're usually brilliant at one or two things. And the rest of the stuff just slows us down. So hire people as fast as you can that augment your strengths with the strengths that you're missing. That's my belief.
You're talking like you need to put the business first. You need the business to grow. And the next question that I have, because that's some of the recommendations I've given to others, is who do you bring on first? And do you bring them on full time? Do you do it part time? Like, what are those first couple of steps? Because that first employee or two is difficult, especially when you're looking at them sitting twiddling their thumbs, not being effective. Because that's how we eat when we kill something as entrepreneurs. We're not used to someone just clocking in a clock, and it drives people nuts to see that.
So I'll reiterate a little bit, and then I'll talk about that twiddling your thumbs thing. And again, these are my opinions, right? These are my experiences. The first thing is that when we hire somebody, it's because there's a felt need, right? So if you're trying to be on sales calls all day, but there are distractions, or you're really good at sales calls, but you're not really good at just dialing for dollars. So then you may hire somebody to call and set appointments for you. And then you come on and have the sales conversation. There's an example. of something at the beginning. If you've got some other kind of a service business, and you're out, like think about calling a plumber or an electrician or something like that. If they're out in the middle of a job site, it may be a very bad time to take a phone call, right? And so my house is flooding, my pipe just burst, and I'm calling, and maybe the plumber is like, yeah, I'm doing this job right now for my sister, I'm doing somebody a favor right now. If you have a receptionist, even if it's one of these outsourced services, right? Somebody can get a hold, the person with the burst pipe can get a hold of your office, and that receptionist can identify, do I think this is a higher priority than what the plumber's out doing now? Or going, hold on, that's terrible. Let me call, Mike the plumber, Bob the builder, and check with, how quick they can get over there. And then all of a sudden there's a chance to get an emergency call where you're going to charge double, and you're going to do all this stuff. And, you don't know, because maybe I'm just doing some little fiddly job over here with my phone turned off. That you find, what are you missing from what's helping you be successful? So they should never twiddle their thumbs, because when you hire them, there should already be a felt need for that help. You don't just hire them to say, oh, I'm an employer. That's a really bad use of money. But you can hire them to do the thing that's thwarting you from advancing the business further. That's that. Second thing is, and you mentioned the Unshackled Owner course earlier. So I'll just give you something that I teach about that I did not invent. And some of you guys listening may already know this if you're a Covey fan, and I'm a Stephen Covey fan. He taught a way to write a job description. And are you guys familiar with that? Have you ever talked about that DGRAC before?
I know I read it in your book, but I don't know much about it.
So just write this down. We won't go into depth on it now, but just write it down. Here's a takeaway. So DGRAC, if you make a list, DGRAC, D stands for desired results. G is guidelines. R is resources. A is accountability. And C is consequences. And so if we say the desired result is to answer the phone, you're going to get mixed results. Another quote I use a lot in all my speaking is, when we deal in generalities, we shall rarely have success. When we deal in specifics, we shall rarely have a failure. So if we say, okay, receptionist, the job is to answer the phone by the third ring, use smile to the point of a grin when you answer the phone, and identify yourself this way and ask these questions, right? So now we have a specific desired result that we've given to that employee. And it could be a dialer, it could be somebody digging ditches, it could be somebody as a busser in a restaurant, it doesn't matter. What's the desired result? Guidelines. Well, the guidelines are actually I guess the desired result is be the front-facing person of our company that sets the tone for the call, right? What's the guideline? Smile to the point of the grin, answer by the third ring, resources. Here's your phone. Here's your training manual. Here's these training videos about sounding great on the phone. Here's your upline mentor who's gonna. Here's your person that's going to spell you when you go on a bathroom break or to go to lunch. Those are your resources. Accountability. We're recording the calls, and so we're going to spot check your calls, and weekly we're going to evaluate your performance. Consequences for success and failure. Consequences for failure could be you get fired, but it could be we're going to retrain you. It could be that maybe this isn't the right job for you. Let's move you to let's move you to customer service instead of reception, right? Consequences for success. You get to keep your job, sure, but maybe you get a spiff. Maybe we put your name on the employee of the month board. What do you get? But when you design your job descriptions without a bunch of flowery language, but desired results, guidelines, resources, accountability, and consequences, there is no fuzziness in what's going on. If you write a good job description using the Digger Act, which is what I call it, there is no ambiguity. And the problem is most people suffer from a lack of specificity. There's a lot of fuzziness around the edges instead of clarity. And when somebody is clear on what's expected of them, there's a lot less opportunity to twiddle your thumbs. Because unless they're just knocking out of the park, at which point, if they're knocking out of the park, then it's up for you to decide, do I give them additional job descriptions? Or do I go, they're doing great. I don't want to mess with perfection. If I need something new, I'll work to hire the next person. That's how I do it. Again, I give you long answers, but hopefully they're actionable answers and not just platitudes. We need, as business owners and as these people with aspirational goals, the only way we're going to get to anywhere near the level of our heroes or get to the level of our desired result for our life is to get explicit about what we want and get explicit with our employees, whether they're full-time employees, part-time employees, if they're a VA that's in some other country, if it's an intern that's just trying to get, school credit or whatever. We need to be very, very explicit about what we want them to do because they are an appendage of us. They're another arm, they're another hand, they're another set of eyes. They're taking part of the work that we've committed as a company to get done and doing it. And they reflect you and your values and your belief systems and what you stand for and what you stand against. So getting the right people in the right seats with clear marching orders and clear accountability and consequences is just like the way they perfect a race car engine. And it gets down to, it's not like, oh yeah, it's the Honda Accord's pretty fast. No, this Indy car gets tweaked. So they get the greatest value out of the engine, out of the fuel consumption, out of the exhaust, out of the tires, out of the brakes. It's dialed in. And that's how they win races. And that's how we win in the race of business as well.
It almost makes it sound like that you could almost make a poor hire, or not the best hire, I guess I should say, however, make up for it in using your Digger Act. And then those people responding to that vision, if you will, can turn into, which will turn out to be a good decision or the type of employee you need. I mean, that's a little bit eye-opening to me. You've mentioned vision and being specific.
Jason,
Go ahead.
can I flip that real quick? Just in real short. You might find a great person and they end up being a bad hire because of your lack of preparation for them. If you hire somebody who's generally got a willing attitude and a decent personality and a decent brain, if they're willing and if you're explicit and then you empower them to do their job and not be like looking over their shoulder constantly, because you want them to innovate. You want them to bring part of their brain power and their thinking and their creativity into your world. Keith Cunningham says most companies end up buying arms and legs when what we really want to do is win their heads and hearts. And I love that. When we bring a good person on and show them how to be successful in their job and then let them go do it and listen to them as they get good at it, they will go so far beyond anything you could have hired them for. That's the trick. Get explicit and then give them the empowerment and the authority to act in their position. And that's how you get innovation that you'll never think of. You If you get good employees, they're going to come up with a million great ideas that you would have never thought of. But if you're up here keeping them on track and keeping them pulling together, whether it's you and one other person, or if it's 10,000 people, or it's like a buddy of mine that I just was talking to who's got 1.6 million people he's responsible for in their company, Apple, right? No, I'm sorry, not Apple, Amazon. Anyway, I'm looking at an Apple in front of me. The point is, the same rules apply. So anyway, that's what I want to say. We can take somebody with a good attitude and a good mind with no experience, and with our training and with our reporting, accountability, consequences, and being explicit, that person can turn into a dynamite employee. But we can take a phenomenal performer and totally screw it up by not giving them an environment where they can flourish. So there you go. That's my response. That was my flip.
I'm going to jump in right here, Aaron. It's been an awesome interview, and this is going to need to be 2 episodes. So everyone, we're going to conclude this portion of Aaron Young's interview, and we'll pick it up next week.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.